A tribute to the journey is meant to shed light on the ups and downs of being an athlete. It's not all glorious, but it's all worth it. There is no path to success without adversity, and we fight through it for the love of the game. Along the way, we find out what's really important: the journey.
If I looked at it the right way, then I could take a ton of positives from it. And then I look back, I was like, I know a lot of other guys kind of went through the same thing, you know? So
Yeah.
I know you played on some really good teams in high school, and then going from that and then deciding on what school to go to in college. Give me a little bit about how you went about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate to play on like you said, like those good travel ball teams. So teams with Chandler and David Chandler, Mark Helsel, his teams. USA Elite is obviously super successful now. They're organizations, and like, I mean, I was definitely never one of the best players on the team, but I was always at least good enough to be there. So
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was very enjoyable to play with guys that were so much better, like guys getting drafted out of high school like super early. Like it was a lot of fun. But I mean, that brought a lot of exposure for me, and in going through the college process, for me it started really early. Like my freshman year of high school, I had my first offer, um, and from there it ballooned really quick, because I was very good when I was a freshman. And then I kind of never really got better in high school. Like I kind of threw a little bit harder. um, Pitching got a little bit better at pitching, but and then it's recruiting sparked up again my junior year, and for me, like, super overwhelming. Like all talking to different guys, like even like not necessarily like having so many guys, because it's not like I had like a million offers or anything like that, but just having to build relationships with people and then like them almost be fake because people are just trying to get you to go there. Like it did
Right.
sit well with. So I definitely may have made a hasty decision when I went to college, just because I wanted that to be over. And my parents were comfortable with me going. I went to Penn State, my first year I was with you there, but my parents were super comfortable with me going there. I had friends there, I was comfortable going there. But like in hindsight, I learned a lot my freshman year while I was there. Like learned who I was, the stuff I wasn't good at, stuff I was good at. I just learned a lot about myself. And like during that time, you were there with me during that time, like I was not in a good place, right? Like just I didn't know how to handle that. I never had to handle that.
Yeah.
Um,
Like you're a
so
kid. You're
yeah,
like you
yeah,
just said, it was overwhelming because you got grown men that you have no idea who they are, that they're trying to be your friend, or what are they trying to do? And it is very overwhelming. So
yeah,
like that's one thing that people don't understand. Like, oh great, you're getting recruited and all this. Like it's not all great. So, and it's a big decision for a kid. So it's cool to hear everybody talk about that. So you said you're in a little rough place at your first school, but then give me some of the good that, now looking back on it, what good things can you take from it?
yeah. I like you said, like dealing with grown men and even like coaches, like that's like your first taste of like having a coach that's like he's your coach, but he's also like you have a relationship with him. Like you're
You're
not
around
just
them all the
listening.
time.
Yeah, you're around him all the time. He's like one of your dads, like head coach, pitching coach. And when you're getting recruited, like they tell you all the stuff you want to hear. Like there aren't many places that are going to tell you what's bad about their program because it's just it doesn't sell, right? So I had
Bad
to learn
salesman.
teammates and coaches with different personalities that I've never had to deal with before, right? So my biggest takeaway from that was um, I almost do wish in a lot of ways that like I kind of would have stayed the course there because I know I would have learned so much, but also I realized that that just wasn't the place for me, right? And
Yeah.
I had to go find that was right for me. Um, and I'm never somebody that would recommend like if things get tough, like quitting or doing something like that. Like there's a reason it's tough.
Hmm.
And me, it definitely was just like, oh, you need to realize that this just isn't the type of place that you need to be.
Right.
You need to find what fits you better.
Yeah. And that there's so many big decisions to make in that short 5 to 6 years that it really makes you grow up quick. So,
Yeah.
but let's talk about Cuba for fun. Like,
Yeah.
looking back at it now, you're like, Cuba? What? No one's allowed to go to Cuba. But
Right.
that was a really cool experience. There was I remember going to like the Havana Square, and there were little kids playing stickball and stuff.
Right.
And I remember you were one of the richest guys in Cuba because they messed up your transactions.
Yeah, they messed up the conversion rates, and I had a guy that gave me like double what I was supposed to have. So I was handing it out, man.
But what did you see from? Because they love, obviously they love baseball down there, and what did you take from that trip? Because I learned a lot about doing it for the love of the game from being down
Right.
there.
Right. And I think, I mean, looking back, like that was such a, like, that's a once in a lifetime trip. Like making a trip to play baseball. Like we might get a chance to go to Cuba at some point, maybe not, but to play baseball there against like Cuban players that play professionally in Cuba, like crazy. And I just remember the biggest thing I take away from that is like I still have the pictures on my iPad and stuff, and I remember like taking pictures of like the kids like banging on the bus, and like they wanted gear and they wanted, you know, everything, and it makes you think like, oh, I'm playing at Penn State, and you know that's not the best baseball school, but I'm still playing Division I baseball at a Power 5 school, right? And there's little kids like their only chance to keep playing baseball is to play professionally in Cuba or on the street, right? So I think my biggest takeaway was that like I could be living in any other country, anywhere, and not have the opportunity to play baseball in college. And looking back, like no matter where I played, it was so fun to play, and to like go to school and do that, like it made it so much easier. And it's just not everybody gets to do that. We're really lucky.
Yeah, it really put it into perspective what's good and what people don't have.
Right.
I remember walking up and down some of those streets, and it was sketchy.
Oh, more mattresses on cement floors in living rooms, and like, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it was something to see. So, and eating the same food for however long we were there, running them dry. Yep. But there were some, there were some very, very good baseball players there, and it's like it sucks that they can't easily come over here and play because they have to defect. But that's another thing. Like they go through some. They're willing to risk their lives and to go to jail in their country to come over here and play baseball.
Yeah,
it just shows like what it can mean to people.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thinking back on that was. I saw the picture of us on the plane the one day, and I was like, shit. That was one hell of an experience. I was ready to come home, but
civilization back to running water, but
yeah, you got guys shitting themselves on the airport and stuff. Got the runs. Right. That was a hell of an experience, but it was so cool. Yeah. But so did you know where you wanted to go before you left Penn State, or did you kind of leave and go, I'm going to figure it out from here?
For me, I mean, I was in such a weird place mentally, and when I was leaving and I wanted to leave, I didn't even know if I wanted to play baseball. I didn't know if baseball was the issue. I didn't know if it was school. I just knew that the situation I was in, I didn't want to be in it anymore. So I had to sit down with my parents, talk, and they were kind of like, at least like explore your options. Like, there's a couple places that you've talked to, like at least go see what you want to do. So I visited Millersville and I visited UCF, and that was all after I decided I just wasn't going to come back to Penn State.
Yeah.
And I think if I would have ended up in either place, I would have been great. UCF was awesome. It was a lot like Penn State. It was just a ton of fun, great coaches. Like, it would have been a blast to live in Orlando and play baseball.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Warm all the time.
Yeah. Millersville was a lot different, a lot more rows of corn and tractors. But the first time I talked to Coach Sheehan about baseball and have him recruit me a little bit, like I realized that he talked, it was more than about baseball. And I think that that's kind of what I needed to be in a place like that where like baseball is a part of my life, and we need to use that. When I decided on Millersville, it was like there's kind of coming home, it's close to home and everything, and it's far enough away that I was able to kind of grow, but I wasn't thrust down.
Right.
And for me, that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, going back to, you said you might have been done with baseball. Like, you're part of the reason that I continued to play baseball. Remember, like when I left South Carolina, I talked to you about it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, I might just be done. So that's one thing, but yeah, and you were always a guy that had other interests and did other things. Like including me, I kind of lived and died by baseball. Like I didn't really do much other stuff. I didn't really have any other interests, but that is, like you're saying, it's huge for like the program and the school, and everything has to relate to you and stuff, and it just makes everybody's life better when it's not just about baseball. It's about your life, becoming a better person. So yeah, that it was cool to see, and I never would have thought of this whenever we both left Penn State that year, that we see each other again in another school, and just how much different you were. I was different. I think so. It's just part of the reason why I call this a journey, because you don't know where the hell you're going, but just enjoy the ride, because it's going to go up, it's going to go down, and yeah. So
Yeah, I think, and just like for both of us, I think I don't want to speak for you, but I think you would definitely relate with the fact that like the stuff that we went through, not that we went through anything else awful. Like we didn't,
right.
we're going, like the stuff that we went through, we learned from. Like we went through that for, like we grew from it. And I think that if recruiting and the way people talked about you when you were getting recruited and stuff, if it was about like, yeah, there's going to be times that suck. This is when it's going to suck, when you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning. It's going to suck when you lose, and it's going to suck when you're not playing, but it's happening for a reason, right? Like we can absolutely grow from that. And I that was never my mindset when I was going through it. And looking back, if it would have been a lot different.
Right. Yeah. You would definitely be a different person today if you don't go through that. And who knows who you would be. So it's looking back on all the adversity and stuff, it makes you thankful for it, even though it sucked during.
Yeah.
But so go into the end of your Millersville career, where you deserve to be drafted, but nobody, like some people are saying, like it's not always the guy that deserves it, and there's a lot of, I guess I'll call them, politics in the professional game of who gets picked up and stuff. Like there is so much that goes into that and no one knows it. But I know it was difficult for you, but getting that opportunity, what did all that kind of do for you and mean to you?
Oh, it was, I mean, I'm never somebody that's going to say that like I'm failing or like we're learning, like we never fail. We're always growing. But to just have it validate, like just to play in a professional game, like your perspective changes because, baseball has so many rounds and so many people get drafted and there's so many people in the minor leagues. But when you look at like the grand scheme of things and how many people play baseball, the people that get to play professional baseball, it's such a minuscule amount of people, even college baseball.
Right.
So just to have kind of that validation within yourself, it's like, yeah, I've been working for this for 21 years since I was born. All I wanted to do was play professional baseball. And I'm getting that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a complete mind switch that flips because all that, unvalidation and all that, like outside support, that it's really easy when you get it. It makes you feel really good, but you got to go through not getting it to kind of get it right.
Right. Yeah.
So obviously, like I'm not a top 10 rounder. The guys that if you're there and you see the guys that are top 10 rounders, you're like, yeah, give that guy millions of dollars because he does everything better than everybody else. But just for somebody to think that I was good enough to play, like, it definitely motivated me to kind of see like I'm here, I'm pitching and I'm getting guys out. Like, how can I get better? Like, is this my ceiling? Is it not my ceiling? But just to be there and to even like see where you're at. I mean, it's just validation for the work that you did for years. Yeah.
Right. So talk about you just said your ceiling. That's a great way to put it. Everybody goes through some plateaus, whether it's in the weight room, like with maxes and stuff like that, or velos and stuff. Talk about going through those, because I know you did and I did, and I've seen you break through them. So
yeah, I mean, I'm going through one right now, so I'll talk from experience right now. I told you earlier, partially tore my lat at the end of the year, and I rehabbed out in Arizona for the entire off season. So I didn't get released until I think it was March, and I was in Arizona all the way up to the beginning of quarantine. So whatever. So I spent like six months out there just rehabbing by myself. And like the first 2 months got hurt again, like right back to square one, re-MRI, everything, go back. And they're like, oh yeah, you have a tear in your lat. It's like, okay, well, that would have been nice to know 2 months ago. So you have to deal with that, not knowing.
right.
Once we got that, got home, started to get velo back, hurt my shoulder again and got released. Just like impingement stuff, just like your pains. And now like I'm just starting to kind of get velo back. So for me, looking for a team and somewhere to play, I have absolutely no clue if I'm ever going to play in a baseball game again. Like I could be training hours and, putting all this time in. I very well could just be done playing baseball. I don't know. But what I do, right, is that when I was playing and playing professionally, like even though it was the AZL and we were playing 16-year-old Dominican kids, like I was good enough to be there. So I at least have that. And that's where like now it's not so much like I want to play in the major leagues. I want to be the best. It's more like, okay, like, am I good enough to get better? Am I good enough to have a chance? Or, where is my ceiling? Like, I don't even know where it's at, because if I would have just stopped and I got hurt, it's like, okay, well, you got better when you got the pro ball. You started throwing harder. Like, is that going to continue? Right. And I think that's what you have to look at. Like, you have to look at what you've done as a whole, and not just like, oh, I want to do that. Right. So everybody wants to throw 95, but if you've never thrown the ball over 90, it's like, you got to throw the ball 90 miles an hour first.
Right.
You're never going to know what that is, but you can kind of get a feel for yourself. You have to be really good at self-assessing. Right. So I know I'm not the best, but I also know that I'm good enough to at least be there and maybe have a shot. Right. There's other people that could very well be like, yeah, I'm the best, and my ceiling is definitely going to be playing in a major league game. And there are guys that think that's the case, and it isn't the case. But I think knowing where you're at is like the most important thing, and knowing what your goals should be and not what you want them to be. Like, you have to be really real with yourself, and it's hard. Like, I think, me and my personality, like I want to be good at everything that I do, and I don't like when other people beat me, but like I have to take a step back and be like, there are people that are just outwardly better than me, and I will never be as, but that doesn't mean that you still can't do it.
Okay. It's, even though you got to pro ball, you were like, can I get better? Like how far does this uphill climb go? And who knows? Like, we don't know. You could heal up, train, and 2-3 years from now be sitting 95. We don't know. And that's really, when I learned that, to take that perspective into the things, it made everything more enjoyable, because like, I don't have to be great today. I just have to do it because I love it, and then we'll see what happens. I know a couple a couple guys that they were done playing, or they got out of pro ball and then they went to indie ball, like, or they went overseas. So that having just that perspective to be able, like you have, to keep going. And I don't know what my ceiling is, so let's just keep trying. And you're gonna find your way along that path.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, whether I end up playing again or I end up coaching or in baseball, like, the doors that just wanting to play has opened up for me. Coaching, lessons, like, just being in the game of baseball, like, it's given me so many more opportunities than just playing.
Right.
So and like, that's all part of the journey too. Like, maybe I had to play pro ball, had to get hurt, and had to be at full reps because that was where I needed to be to get my coaching experience or whatnot.
Right.
So again, it's just part of that journey. Like, you just don't know what is going to be opened up for you.
Yeah, and it's being able to look and take that perspective is huge. But so go through, because a torn lat is not a common injury. What happened? Was it one throw? Did you feel pain, or was it just you started to lose velo and you didn't really know why?
Yeah, so it was actually it was probably my last starter. I maybe had one more start, first pro ball season, and I'm pumping. Like, I've never thrown this well. Like, I'm in a pro game and I'm throwing a no-hitter through 5, and I'm like feeling myself, like feeling good. And I come off the inning after the 5th inning, sit down, and I'm like, my arm's not feeling great. Like, my back is starting to hurt. Outside of my arm starting to hurt a little bit. It's like, oh, like, I'm throwing a no-hitter. Like, I'm going back out on the mound. Like we're not done. So I went out and I threw my first warm-up pitch, and I felt it kind of like release and my arm go, and just pain like immediately. And that was like the first time that I really had like arm pain ever. So like, at that point I was like, I tore something, I'm done. I knew I tore it. So it was tough. It was definitely the most painful injury I've had. Like, even like sprained ankles, broken bones. Like, it was one of the more painful I've ever had.
Yeah, that's not something you hear today, but that one, it's crazy how you kind of know when you feel it. How did rehab go for you? Because I went through a bunch of rehab. I probably spent accumulation of 2 years rehab in my life. Was it, for me, I'll give you my kind of take on it. It was, at first you're kind of down on yourself, and then you start to see a little bit of gain, and your spirits pick back up, your motivation picks back up, and then you hit a halt, and then if you can get through that halt, then it kind of takes off for you.
Yeah, and mine was very, very, very similar. And so getting hurt, it was like, okay, well, they're telling me it's not that bad. Everybody's going home in a month. I'm going to rest this thing for a month and I'm going to get out of there. Like, we're going to go home. We're going to get healthy. We're going to be ready for next year. And when it was time to go home, went to throw a bullpen, and I just hurt it again. Like, it just wasn't better. So that was when I got the MRI. And then mentally, like, at that point, I was like, you're broken, right? Like, I was away from home for 6 months, 2,000 miles from anybody that I know, by myself, and I have to stay out here in some random apartment and get shuttled to the field every day for 6 months trying to figure out how to make my arm not hurt. So it definitely was hard. And then finally quarantine hit. I was able to go home healthy enough. And it happened again, like more shoulder pain. So I think mentally going through that, like, it gave me such a better appreciation for like just getting to play the game. Like, you take practice for granted. Like, if you're practicing day after day after day, like, it's gonna get monotonous, especially throwing. So I would say now, like, I actively want to play baseball more than I've ever actively wanted to play baseball, and that would not be the case if I didn't get hurt.
Right.
So
I had the same experience going through injuries. Like, you're that fire just builds and builds and builds, and you're like, get me back on the field. Like, when you physically can't play the game that you've been able to your whole life, it eats at you. I don't mean to cut down the doctors or the training staff of organizations, but from what I've heard in my experience, the private sector is so much better in handling rehab and that stuff. So compare them for me.
Yeah, so the Brewers, so when you're an employee, like pro baseball, you are an employee of the organization. And I was super lucky to be in the Brewers organization because I would say more than 75% of the organizations I would have went to as a 38th rounder. And I probably wouldn't even gotten a shirt the first day. Like I probably would have had to like crawl into a closet and find myself something to wear for practice. But the Brewers treated me really, really, really well. And while maybe it took a little bit for me to kind of bug them to get me an MRI and stuff like that. As the lowest level employee, it doesn't make you feel great, but it's part of the business. So I definitely found that when I got home and away from them and what they were doing, there were people in the private sector that like could make a better deep dive. Like they weren't taking care of 30 other guys, and you were paying them your own money, so they cared a little bit more about you.
Right.
It's definitely different, and I think that the private sector it's better, right? Like if you're good, you want to own your own business and you want to do it that way. But there were a lot of good trainers along the way. I was with like 4 or 5 when I was with the Brewers because I was there for so damn long. But there were some that were really, really good at what they did, and some that weren't as good at with other people as other people were. So there definitely was a difference in maybe not quality, but the attention that was paid to you, which is understandable. Like if the Brewers gave somebody $5 million, they give me nothing. And who are they going to pay more attention to?
Right. It's your investment. So
yeah, that's what you signed up for. But just being able to get back into like the private sector and people that like you can kind of surround yourself with people that care a little bit more about you as a person, that want to really figure out what the issue is and why this is happening. That was when I really started to be able to kind of rehab and get healthier.
Yeah, that was one thing that I, because I got injured my senior year of high school. I didn't have the college trainers or pro organization trainers. I had a private guy, and I compared everything to that guy, and he was damn good, and he was always feeding me new stuff that he was like, hey, you want to try this today? And he just really, we worked well together, and ultimately he was one of the reasons that I kind of got into this business and studied this stuff in college, was because he made it interesting for me. And so much of it, when I went back and compared it to the college trainers that I had, it was kind of just, this is our system, follow it. If you get better, you get better. If you don't, you don't. And that was, I was like, man, why can't these guys give a little bit of effort? And at first it was because I was the one injured. I had a very negative outlook on it, but then you look back and you're like, yeah, they do have to handle 30 guys. Like that's, when time is limited and you got 24 hours in a day, that's a big role. But the one thing that I came to the conclusion of is, when you learn how to leverage teaching and stuff like that, there almost becomes no excuse for being a cookie cutter system, because you can educate an athlete on why he got hurt, what are the steps we're trying to take to get better, and just a little bit of anatomy and stuff like that. Most guys will understand that, and because it's their body that they're working on, they'll buy into it, and they'll take your little bit of information and then go find more. So even though I did cut them slack at the end of my career, I was like, this is why I want to do this, why I want to start my own companies, because I've always liked training, but 2, I like teaching and seeing guys get better. And that,
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And I think an important thing to remember is I just read this book called The Four Agreements, and it's old, and it's about pretty much principles of an old Toltec like Indian tribe, like Native American tribe. And
yeah,
one of the things that the agreements was, you can't take anything personally. You can't treat somebody, make it personally, and when people treat you away, you can't take it personally. And I definitely did that for a long time. Like,
oh yeah,
oh,
same.
coach doesn't want to play me because he doesn't, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't like me. Or like, this person doesn't want to pay attention to me because they don't think I'm good, or something like that. Where people have so much stuff going on. We just think about our own
Right.
stuff.
Yeah,
But also, like, if you're actively trying to do the right thing and help anybody that you can possibly help in any possible way, like, it comes back around, like things even out. Right. So,
oh yeah,
I mean, you're not doing stuff for other people because you want something in return. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And like, you'll attract that good stuff to you.
oh yeah.
So I think it's important to remember in this situation too.
You got to understand, you like you said, you have so much going on, and you are your first priority, and everybody is their own first priority. So you should never expect another person to put you first, really. Like,
Right.
you are always going to think about yourself more than somebody else will think about you. And realizing that, I cut some people more slack, and I didn't take stuff as personal, and I wasn't as negative about stuff. So yeah, that's what'd you say that book was called?
It's called Four Agreements.
Four Agreements. Okay. I watched the Jordan documentary and how Phil Jackson, all those Native American stuff.
It seems like so much time. It's just it's only a couple of years, man. It's 4 or 5. Those 4 or 5 could define you for the rest of your life, or they can propel you into what you're going to do next, or they can destroy you, and
Oh yeah.
you can never come back from some of the stuff that you go through. But for me, like, what I wish I would have done immediately in baseball as early as I could have been was just like connect with more guys around me, right? And not to like chop it up and go drink beer and like have a lot of fun, but to like really connect and really build those relationships. Because like, especially in pro ball, I think you get connected with your teammates a little bit more, because it's kind of like all these guys that are judging me, all these people in the front office that are judging me, scouts are judging me, coaches are judging me, and they're judging everybody. So you're just
Yeah.
kind of like stuck there together while everybody has you under a magnifying glass and is looking at everything that you do.
Kind of like a
So
fish in a barrel. Bunch of
right,
fish
like,
in a
that's
barrel.
exactly what you are. And I wish I would have got on board with other guys and like talked more to other guys and kind of felt them out, so that we could kind of help each other through this. Right.
Right.
You can't do it alone. And when you get to college and you get to pro ball, it's like you need to find those people and you need to be able to connect with other people, because if you're alone, it's gonna be tough.
Oh,
Real
yeah.
tough.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That yeah, I mean, like, going off of that, I wouldn't be able to do something like this if I didn't connect with guys. And I could have
Yeah.
connected with more guys, but there are certain guys that it was kind of inevitable. It was we related in a certain way, and we build a relationship, and that's for life. That's, hey, you need something, call me. And that's when I mentioned this in the last one. Whether your career ends in high school or whether you're a Hall of Famer, there's life after baseball. And what
A
carries
lot.
right? What's
A
the
lot.
what was Jeter was one of the oldest guys, and he retired younger than 45. So if he lives till he's 70, you got another 25 years of not playing baseball, and that's huge, because it's about what carries over from your playing career. And two things that come off of mind when the guys that get to pro ball, it is money and taking care of that money, and then the relationships, taking care of the people you enjoy being around, and taking care of those people. Yeah, that's not saying you have to call them every day and all this stuff, but just having that relationship and knowing you got a group of people that will have your back is more than anything the success you can have in baseball. You can win as many titles as you want, but actually, the one guy I worked with down in Texas, I was asking him. He got drafted out of Texas A&M. I think he graduated in 2006. I think he's like 32 or something. I was like, "What? Tell me something about it." And he's like, "You know what? The biggest thing I miss is the guys." He's like, "I just miss being around a group of guys and doing whatever, whether you like you say you're drinking beer or you're on a baseball field or you're in a weight room or you're just doing stuff. Like it's that camaraderie, that community, those relationships are what really last forever and what really give life meaning. And that it's when you can have that perspective on it, it makes it all better."
Absolutely. Yeah.